has part of a big law practice, eponymous law practice named, in fact. One area of specialization is sexual harassment. Good to have you here because there are a couple of things that I want to get to. But first of all, let me ask you a question. After what we saw yesterday and what we're seeing today is, this is the Judiciary Committee.
Sure.
They nominate judges and Supreme Court, or they rule on the nominations of judges and Supreme Court justices. But in the end, this is not a judicial proceeding. It boils down, I think, in the view of an awful lot of people, is who do you believe? Whom do you believe? Is it Judge Kavanaugh? Yesterday, was it Dr. Ford? And that, in the end, I think, is what forms the opinion in the American public. Would you agree to that?
That's true. It is not a judicial proceeding, although it acts in some ways like one.
They're used to that, yes. So I think that's what they know best.
Yes, exactly. But it does not have the same sorts of procedural protections, and as we saw yesterday, it's not conducted in nearly the same way as a trial.
What was your overall impression yesterday? There were two compelling arguments. First, Dr. Ford made an impassioned and at times a sort of agonizing recounting of the events, and then Judge Kavanaugh went on the offense, and he was tough. He was the prosecutor there.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. I think that, I mean, it really, like so many things in our political environment today, came down to a Rorschach test of how you view this generally. And I think people who are inclined, I mean, so you could find evidence on both sides to support your position. Dr. Flood did very well, and her testimony, I think, was very credible. And then I think you saw with Judge Kavanaugh, of course, a very impassioned defense. As you put it, he was almost acting as his own advocate, you know, his own attorney there, that I think people who were inclined to believe him in the first place found very compelling. And people who were not inclined to believe him going into that, they were not convinced.
Big picture here, and again, I think you're in a pretty good position to analyze this. This notion of sexual assault and sexual harassment and objectification, it is a problem that clearly is, if not epidemic, it is certainly endemic in our society, and one that, as a society, we're having a hard time coming to grips with. This goes on in an awful lot of places, in an awful lot of situations, whether we like it or not, and we probably ought to be paying more attention to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I opened my own practice, I was a sex offense prosecutor with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., and of course now represent the civil side of it. And you're right, it is very complicated, not only for the cases legally are complicated, but for the people coming forward. It's emotionally complicated for the reasons that we saw yesterday. A lot of times people wait to report that, or they don't report at all. It's found out some other way. So these cases are uniquely difficult to bring and prosecute and to resolve.
I think sometimes that we wonder if these are watershed events beyond just sort of the drama that we saw yesterday, that maybe this does give us an opening now, an opportunity to take a wider view, a bigger picture look at this. What do you think?
I think that's exactly right. And I think one thing that will come from this, and we've already seen some of this, is that women are coming forward, and some men too, this does happen to men,
yes,
you know, and saying to people, their loved ones, you know what, like this happened to me too. And so I think it does give that entree regardless of how the politics of this shake out. And I think ultimately that's a good thing for us. And I think we're having a moment of reckoning as a nation that a lot of this has gone on in the dark for a long time.
Tom Spiggle joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate that, because it's important perspective, and it also gets us back now.